So, just a couple of weeks ago, we got our second Game of Thrones spin-off show, this time being A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, which is based on the spin-off book series The Hedge Knight, also written by George R.R. Martin. It has been well received. As of January 27th, the average episode rating is an 8.4 on IMDb. Now comparing that to the first Game of Thrones spin-off, House of the Dragon, has 2 seasons so far, with a third coming sometime in 2026. The first season with that show was well received, with an average episode rating of 8.7, although the second season was not nearly as good in the eyes of the critics and fans, getting a rating of 7.8. Recently, the majority of Game of Thrones fans and content creators very clearly indicate that they love A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms more than House of the Dragon. I find myself thinking, why could this be? The average amount of money spent on every episode of House of the Dragon was about $20 million per episode, more than the episodes for Season 8 of Game of Thrones, while A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms episodes cost only about $6 million, a huge decrease. So in this video, I will figure out why A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is so much more well received. To be honest, I don't think it's that complicated. The main reason people love A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms more than House of the Dragon is because of just how raw and authentic A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is. I would compare it to the early seasons of Game of Thrones, although on a much smaller scale. And that's one of the reasons I think people love this new show, because of the smaller scale. It is so refreshing to have a much smaller and more nitty-gritty version of Westeros that we have never seen before. In every other version of Westeros, we have seen a huge scale with Game of Thrones. We're bouncing from Harrenhal to Robb's Camp to Winterfell to King's Landing in the same episode. And hey, that worked for the early seasons of Game of Thrones, as they portrayed it perfectly. House of the Dragon has the same problem, but a lot worse. In one episode, our main characters have gone all around Westeros. In episode 2, Otto Hightower and the Kingsguard just fast travel from King's Landing to Dragonstone in like 5 minutes. The amount of travel shown in House of the Dragon is very minimal, as the creators wanted to show more of the flashy dragons and cool battle scenes. This is contrasted with what Game of Thrones and now A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms did amazingly well, as they were showing off characters' talents on the road. I talked about this in my last video, which will be in the card in the corner, on how showing off a character's talents in a situation you wouldn't normally expect to see helps to bring development and more respect for those characters. Like Tyrion persuading the Hill tribesmen to not kill him, or even Jaime going back to save Brienne. In those situations, it absolutely works. This is something that House of the Dragon utterly failed at. There are some good scenes of development, especially when Viserys is on screen, but it's more few and far between compared to the other two shows. Now let's look at what A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms got right. First of all, the smaller scale makes it feel so much more intricate, and it allows the viewer to not only get immersed, but they also get more invested in a specific character, which in this case is Dunk. And instead of focusing on princesses and kings and rightful lords, we follow a simple hedge knight with barely anything to his name, as he just tries to make his way in a world with aspirations of becoming a great knight. It is such a simple yet effective story that really resonates with the viewer. Because the story focuses on only one person, it allows the audience to become more fond of that character. If you read the Hedge Knight story, you probably know how the show will end. To this point, it has been a very faithful adaptation, and that makes me happy. A show like House of the Dragon has such a huge scale that it is very easy for a viewer to get disinterested, as they might think the story doesn't have much depth, as you don't spend more than a few minutes in places. In Season 1, the Crab Beaters have an important role in the first episodes, yet we know nothing or very little of their motivations. Whereas in Episode 1 of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, we learn so much from characters like Lionel Baratheon, who really likes to party and drink and flirt with Dunk. Renly would be proud. Or from Manfred Dondarrion, who loves to be in the presence of women and doesn't really care much for those who fought for him. And one thing amazing about the story is that there really is no villain. If you want to say that Aerion is the villain, then that's fine, but I'm meaning more in the traditional bad guy who really wants to kill the good guy and hates the main character because of some grudge. He's not like the White Walkers or the Lannisters in Game of Thrones, or Team Green in House of the Dragon. And also, an absolutely brilliant casting choice as Dunk, as Peter Claffey absolutely nails the not-so-witty but more forgiving and kind knight, as there aren't many of those in the realm. Instead of huge-scale conflicts and wars where our heroes have to maneuver a political minefield, which is what Game of Thrones Season 1 through 4 is, instead we get a more mellow but still very exciting story about a knight and his unassuming squire as he tries to make a name for himself. Also, I would be damned if I didn't mention the set, as there are many visuals in the show which I love, and is heavily contrasted with House of the Dragon, which is very CGI and VFX heavy. The whole camp design is absolutely brilliant, and man, Ira Parker knows how to direct a show. There are very few cringy or meant to be heroic and awesome lines in the show, and if there are cringy lines, it is from Dunk, as he is very socially inept and has a hard time talking to people. His forte is in fighting, which leads me to yet another compliment from the series. It is amazing how the show creators and George Martin don't show Dunk fighting in his first 2 episodes, and maybe more we'll see when his first fights. The whole story is about a hedge knight, and yet Dunk seems to shy away from a fight. When Dunk is asked to fight, he says no and seems very shy and not wanting interactions with other fighters. This once again is a brilliant choice to show Dunk as this somewhat boneheaded but not stupid, very large hedge knight that just wants to make a name for himself. It is a very sweet yet knit and gritty story that shows the reality of the people of the Seven Kingdoms. It's great that we don't get yet another story of people living in castles and having stuff brought to them all day. It's a different style of conflict in A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms than the other A Song of Ice and Fire spin-off shows. In the other 2 shows is a very political style of conflict, as the main characters have to battle around their political rivals as they battle in the Game of Thrones. Instead, we have a story about a guy who doesn't have much money and tries to get food wherever he can get it, like when we see Dunk walking in Lionel's tent because, as he says, he just wanted supper, something that amused Lionel. Also, I liked how we see the 3 Baratheons in Game of Thrones in Lionel. We see Robert in Lionel as he loves to drink. We see Stannis in Lionel as he talks about heretics and burning people, a lot like Stannis. And we see Renly in Lionel with the very fruity ways he interacts with Dunk, especially when they are dancing. There are a myriad of different characters that come from different places, and it is amazing to see all these types of people come together and interact together. It is nice seeing Dunk as a very clueless and bumbling but not stupid character. This is something that Ira Parker does very well, as there's a fine line between showing your main character as stupid and moronic and bumbling that barely makes it through their interactions, but Ira makes sure that Dunk isn't portrayed as this, and that he may be socially inept, but he still is of decent and normal intelligence. He may be dumb at some parts, but isn't overall shown as a bumbling moron. Another thing done very well is showing Dunk as trying to follow in the footsteps of Sir Arlen of Pennytree, a man who Dunk is squired for. We see Dunk try, to some extent, to be similar to Sir Arlen when he tells Egg he will cuff him over the ear if he keeps being disrespectful, but the viewer can tell that Dunk doesn't really mean that, and he seems overall soft to Egg, and even though he talks about beating him, it seems that was something he couldn't bring over from his dead mentor. And also, the costumes in the show are absolutely spot on. I love Lionel's design, especially with the antler crown. It looks perfect on a character like Lionel. All the knights' designs look amazing, as well as Arion's badass helmet and armor, as it looks once again so fitting for a Targaryen, and something a person with practically infinite money would have. The whole first few episodes take it slow, something that I really appreciate about it. There's no huge moment of Jon Arryn's death or Rhaenyra being named heir to the throne. Instead, we have a very few mellow episodes where the show creators take time in really letting the moment sit. When Dunk is somewhere like in Lionel's tent, the scene extends on, but is done perfectly. When I watched episode 1, I was expecting a cutaway from Dunk and Lionel's conversation any day, and yet it doesn't happen, at least not for a while. When a creator lets the scene sit in one place and doesn't rush the whole plot of what's happening in that location, it helps for so much added character development, which is needed in a show as small of scale as A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. And I love the ending to episode 1, with Egg consoling Dunk that they are the only ones with the luck when they see the shooting star, because all the lords are under their tents. I just absolutely love the dialogue from the show. It's funny when it needs to be, but doesn't lean too heavily on that humor aspect, as this is Westeros after all. As of this time I am writing this, 2 episodes have aired of the 6 that there will be. I hear criticism online about how the story is way too short and we won't get as much story a Game of Thrones show needs. First of all, no, the actual story is incredibly short, and I'm happy that Ira Parker and others decided to show the majority of the stories instead of changing and adding a huge amount of it like the later seasons of Game of Thrones. I won't give too much hate to House of the Dragon for this, as they only had the outline for the story as it is taken from the book Fire and Blood, which is simply a timeline of the Targaryen line of kings. They obviously had to fill in their own things, as they simply have the outline and were forced to fill in the more niche aspects of it. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is 2 episodes in, and I absolutely love both episodes. I would say episode 1 is a bit better. The story gets shown in a more raw light, in my opinion, as we get to flesh out the characters a bit more. This story has a long way to go, and I absolutely think this show is going to be one of the best of all the year. The way Ira Parker and George Martin and all the production team have created a beautiful world that I can't wait to see more of. The story is extremely intricate, and the show has 10 times over done the book's justice to this point. For my money, it is better than any season of House of the Dragon at this point. It is too early to call. Yeah, it might be, but I really think this show has serious potential to be one of the best shows of the year, and this year is stacked with major shows. And we have a confirmed Season 3 of House of the Dragon coming out this year, and that is almost guaranteed to have a huge budget, which will be bigger, much bigger, than Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Maybe I am jumping the shark a little bit, and I will totally give it its fair share, but I don't think House of the Dragon Season 3 has a single chance of being as good as Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is the first Game of Thrones I have watched as it comes out, which makes it very special to me. This story that is being portrayed on screen is one that is absolutely brilliant, and is the first Game of Thrones show that really shows the more gritty and down-low parts of Westeros. How does this knight get his supper? Or how is he even able to get into this tournament, and that he is barely even entered into? The story is absolutely beautiful, and I can't wait for more episodes to come out. I will most certainly have more reviews on this show, and I most certainly will have a full series review when all is said and done. This show is on pace to be one of the best of the entire year, and I absolutely can't wait to see more. Thank you guys all for watching, and the Dinosaur Revolution video will be taking some time, so I've never seen it before, so it'll take some time to write and edit. Thank you guys for watching, and if you haven't, please watch Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button so you don't miss out on any news on Knight of the Seven Kingdoms or Surviving Earth. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys all next time on The Film Donut.
That's all, folks.